Alright, to begin, I'm just going to create a sphere. Pretty simple. I'll switch to a side view, front Z, and move it up, let's say about 15. I'm currently set at 24 frames per second and have my graph editor up. Going to key selected. I'm going to advance, let's say 6 frames. Take the 0, key selected. And this is how we'll start creating the vertical bounce. So I'm going to advance another, say 6 frames. Take this up to say 10. Key selected. A little further, back to 0. Key selected. This time we'll go with say 8, 7. Key selected. A little further. 0, key selected, 4, key selected, 2, back to 0. And then for the last bit of that last little bit here, we will go to, let's do a 1. Zero. And then that's 0.5. Key selected. Key selected. Alright, so this ends up being our sort of sine wave start for the bouncing ball. And if we play through, so let me adjust this range slider, say it to 40. And if we play through, boom, 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 boom. Okay, so we have a bounce. It's just waving at the moment because we have our ease in, ease out. So I need to change these handles here. So what I'm going to do is just select every other one. Like so. Change that to linear. And then that'll give us a better bounce. Now what I'm really going to want to do though is tighten this stuff up. So I'm going to go and say break tangents, and I'm also going to add weighted tangents. That way I can adjust these handles to give a better, more of a bounce. To the ball. Just making some adjustments. Just kind of extending this up a little bit. We're going to bring this down. Since these are so small and so short, it's really not going to matter that much. So let's see how this plays. Boom, 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 boom. I'm actually going to grab this and move it. W, going to move that up just a little bit. So a little more of a first bounce. Yep. Okay. Now I also want to make sure that these are pretty well centered. Things look pretty good that way. I can adjust my timing if I need to by sliding these around. But I'm going to go ahead and add my X movement in this direction, and then that way maybe you can see if it needs to be moving faster, slower, whatever the case might be. So I'm going to go ahead and translate X, and my key selected. That'll give me this, and then let's look at our time. Slide this to the end, and let's go 60. And key selected. Alright, so X, this key is not right. We're on key number 19, so I'm going to change that to 1. Slide that back over so it starts and ends at the same amount of time. And if we scrub through, we'll see that plays, but I don't like this. You really don't want an ease in for your higher velocity at the beginning of the bouncing ball. So I'm going to change this to a linear as well, which will give me a more even bounce and then roll and settle. And tweak this a little bit here and there, just depending. But that's kind of what we're looking for. All right. So let's play it. Okay, that can work. So I could extend this, make it shorter or longer, just depending. Right now it's at 40 frames. I might extend that out to a full 2 seconds at 48 frames. So what I can do is grab both of these, hit R, and then stretch this out. Hold down Shift, move that back into position. R, stretch it out just a little bit more, something like that, and then slide it over and tweak it a little more later. There we go. Boom, 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 boom. Yep. So now we've adjusted that, I'm gonna move some of these into position a little bit. Kind of get that timing and spacing going on. Now this could actually be closer, so I'm going to go ahead and scoop that here, here, and here. So I'm just looking for a couple little frames, so a little, almost more of a little small bounce and almost a vibration kind of at the end, and then it settles in. Boom, boom, boom. All right. So now we have a basic ball bounce. I'm going to go ahead and turn Visualize Ghost selected on, so I can see what how my animation's playing, how my frames are set up. And then what I want to do is I want to start adding squash and stretch, and I also want to add a rotation to it. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm actually going to add a material to it so I can view it a little better. So add a new material. We'll just do a Lambert and go to color, and I'll add a checker and hit 6. So now I can see my ball, and I think I'm going to begin with the rotation. So let's have this thing roll, and then we'll add some squash and stretch at the end. But the main thing, without making a rig, is if we're going to be squashing and stretching this, okay, we're going to need to change where it's going to squash and stretch from, and make sure that it's pointing in the right direction, so it kind of works a little better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push the D key, hold down Shift. I want to move this pivot point to one of these points. So what I'm going to need to do is turn the ghost off, hit D, or else this won't work, and then set the position to the nose here. Hit D to turn that off, And now we have it where it'll rotate and we have a point. So what we can have happen is have the ball always land nose down, and then use that to help squash and stretch the ball like a bullet. So what I'm going to do is we'll start this off the -90 rotation. Key that at frame 1. And then as we move here, hold down J, snap it to -180, key selected. Now the most important part is to land nose down. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and fast forward to the next bounce. So we're down, next bounce. So here, take it around another 360 to a 540. Key selected. And just to check this, if we back, it'll be able to see as that axis changes. A little too much. We'll see. We'll tweak it in a minute. So we'll take that 180, head up, add another 90, down, another 90, go down to the far next one. We'll do 180 on that. There we go. Key selected. And then let's see how large these are. So boom, boom, boom. So these could probably just be rolls. So one more 180. There, key selected. So now we have our ball spinning, rotating to the end, and we'll key this rotation out here in a moment. So now what we're going to want to do is have this squash and stretch, and so this will be neutral. This is our beginning, so I'm going to take my scales, key those, and I'm going to move to my squash point here, hit R, and I want to scale this in a little bit. So we'll do a 0.75, which is aggressive, but not too bad. And then I'll take this out to 1.1 and 1.1. What this will do is expand the sides while collapsing one, so we maintain close to the volume it should be. And then back at the next top, we definitely want these to be back to 1. So we'll key those, collapses down again, squash that down to, that was 0.75. I'll stick with that again. So 0.75 one more time. 1.1, 1.1. Select and key. So you have this bouncing pancake. So back at the top of the arc, definitely needs to be 1 again. Key selected. And then this last one here will be, let's see here, 2 more. So this one will be more subtle. So instead of a 0.75, we'll do a 0.8. 0.85. Whoa, not 8.5. 0.85. And these can be a 0.05, 1.05, and then 1.05. Keep selected. Alright, so checking the timing. Boom. Boom. And then I'd say, yeah, by this point we are definitely at a 1-1-1 situation. Key selected, and then that'll bounce and roll on its way out. So what I'm going to do here is we have this with our 1 point, with our 9.3. Over scales here, at this point here. So what I'm going to want to do, and this is kind of a fix for a wobble factor that we'll have. So if I take my rotation and we start here, so my rotation, and as we're moving on out, so let me see my translate X, boom. I'll just do this, rotate negative 1200, and key selected. So we have something that looks like this. And so if we start backing up, we have this weird wobble that's going to go on. So what I'm going to want to do is, if we look at our scales, the last time I hit the scale button right here, and hit W, what I'm going to do is hit the S key to auto key everything, and then 1 frame over I'm going to do a modify center pivot, and then hit the S key again, and it's going to lock these frames. But again, we've already set our scale to 1. And then what's going to happen now is, because the pivot's been moved from the end to the center, it's going to roll on out. Okay, so we won't have a wobble with our roll. It'll just roll on out. So what I think I'm going to do here is, let's take 48. Let's take this out to 60. Probably don't need that many frames. I'm going to take the rotate, hold down Control, hit the transition X. Now have these two here. I'm going to go ahead and slide that over a little bit, and then slide this over a little bit. And all I'm doing there is just adding just a little extension. Make sure these line up, because you want both of these keys to be ending at the same time, so it'll come to a complete stop. And as a matter of fact, given how flat this curve is, what we will want to do is kind of the same thing here. So I can take this, kind of stretch it like that. I want to make these two keyframes that are right next to each other really consistent, but I do want to flatten this curve out. Yeah, see, so it has this breaking, kind of a break action. Boom. All right. So now that we'll go back to our scales, and we have something that looks kind of ugly like this. So if we start from the beginning and we hit play, boom, 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 roll to the stop. our bounce, and we have a roll to a stop. So now what we need to do is at these key points where we have our squash, right? The keyframe before and the keyframe after, we need our stretch. All right. So this keyframe before, I'm actually visualize ghost selected. Make sure that's turned on so I can kind of see. Yeah, so we can see our our flattened balls. And let's go to 1.1 here in the Y, and then we'll do a 0.8 and a 0.8 in the other directions. So now we're making bullets. So I'm going to key selected there. So now we have what we're wanting, which is bullet, smash, and then back to bullet. So this will be 1.1, 0.8, 0.8, key selected. So we're reversing for that frame. Then we'll come across the middle, and you can see the transition here, right? So you can see this elongation of the ball until it becomes round, and then now we're back to get. So I want to go one frame before, and this one we'll do 1.1, 0.8, 0.8. Select all these keyframes, key selected, smash frame, one frame over, 1.1, 0.8, 0.8, key selected. And now we have one more center, and then you can see this is going to even out to nothing. So this will be our last one, so I don't want it to be quite as intense. So instead of a 1.1, we'll do a 1.05, and then this will be a 0.9 and a 0.9, and key selected. Oops, wrong way. Let's undo this. So we go back here, one frame before, 1.05, 0.9, 0.9, enter. Our last bullet, key selected, center, one over, so 1.05, 0.9, 0.9, key selected, and then we'll move into regular. Okay. We could almost add one more sort of squeeze here, but I'm gonna make sure that's at one round. Let's do what a. Actually, let's set this one to 1, 1, 1. Yeah, we'll do it that. I'll do a 0.95. Yep. So it's super slight. Key selected. So now we have our 1, it's top of the arc. Yep. So this should actually be 1, 1 there. Key selected. Doot, doot. Yep. So we have. It's in between frame 0.9, so this one actually needs to be a 1.05. Yep, sure. Key selected. So what I did was there's only one frame in between this, and so that hybrid frame, I go from round to slightly bigger, and we'll change that to a 0.95. Click. 0.95. Click. Go ahead and key these. So we'll end up, so you can see stretched, round, stretched, squash, and then after that, we're basically approaching 0 again. So that's a 0.93. I'm going to go ahead and this is going to create a lot of really tight keyframes, but it should work. 2. Yep, that'll work. Something like that. Boom, boom, key selected. Yeah, so we have a slight, so the way this is when you get really tight on the keyframes. So here we have slightly elongated, we have our rest, we have the a little bit of stretch right here, then it goes straight round, and then it all kind of turns into just a little kind of like vibration towards the end, and it rolls on out. So what does this look like in the end? Let's play it. All right, so let's add the final details. So I'm going to add a frame, or add a plane. Go to perspective, and make this large and in charge. So everything starts at 0, I can scoot it on over, something like that. And if we look at it, and see everything that's going on. Now what I want to double check on is I want to watch this ball. Alright, so let's move this up. Let's unitize this. So 50 by 50, 1906. Let's go to 18.5. No, let's just make it 20. And a Y, let's go up in 0.5. Okay. Let's try 1. Nope, we want 0.75. There we go. So 0.75 puts the ball basically right on the position. So 0.70. Yep, close enough. And then we'll look for the next bounce. So this one looks good. Now remember, we changed the scale here. So you frame at 26, click on the ball, frame 26. What we have is an issue with the translate Y, and the scale are going to create something a little bit odd. So what we're going to have is this is going to create something a little bit odd, and this key, okay, being set at 0 is going to be just a little bit off. Really hard to see this versus this. I got it. There we go. So now I'm looking at under the plane, seeing how high it is. This isn't 100% necessary, but if I want to match it up, perfect. So what I'm going to look at is we have this key set at 0. A little middle mouse drag. So take translate Y, middle mouse drag. Let's try 0.5. Nope. 0.05. There we go. 0.5. Click. Way too high. 0.05. A little bottom. 7. Okay. 9. That's pretty sheer. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and set that key, which just adjusted that height up just a little bit. And the next time we roll down, we're here. And we see we've got kind of a similar thing going on. So I do a 0.7 again, way too high. 0.07. 1, 2, 1.5, 1, 8. Oh, that's close enough. Yeah, I'll go ahead and key that. So boom, and then now we're off the plane again. So let's just extend this. 100, sure. Slide that over. Ball. We're down a little bit. So translate y, 0.15. Try 0.2. 25. Yeah, that's about great. Key selected. Again, this is just tweaking these little values here at the very end, making sure it's not really going through the bottom. So then we have this one here. Two five, key selected. And here at the very end, if I stick that to a 0.25, .2. Ooh, you can just barely see that. We go to visualize, unghost all. 2, 3. Yeah, it's close enough. Key selected. And so that change of altitude, that when we have to recenter the ball, it's going to change things a little bit, but overall it's not going to be a huge difference. Of course, now we have this one little issue here. I'll auto it. Kind of flatten the curve, which has a new meeting in 2020. And here's the last one. That'll work. 0.23. Key selected, and you can see if we look at this under the microscope, come down, it's flat, and so it should just roll across. And so in the end, we end up with squash and stretch and a ball roll. So what I do is in this here, I'm drawing my camera down a little bit. There we go. And we'll reverse this. So here's our start. I'll frame this a little bit like that. There we go. I'll play it one more time. Cool. Let's add a little special effects to it, shall we? So if we hit like this one, which is a little bit shadowing, we can turn on anti-aliasing, self-shadow, and even motion blur. And this should give us an interesting look. The ball. And just to make it extra fun, we'll hit 3 to smooth shade it. And we have kind of the ball from this angle. And we can reverse that. Bring it in, last frame's way over here. For a little bit different staging. So there you go. That's just a basic bouncing ball. And you can see we have our rotation. The rotation for the spin, that's going to be our rotate Z. Might could even this out just a little bit more, but it seems like it's working all right. We have our scale, which is showing us the squash and stretch. And then we have our transform X and Y. So that's going to give us our bounce, and then it's also going to give us our treble. Now this bit right here would be one last thing to adjust just a little bit. There we go. It's still going to be, that's all going to be very hard to see.